The diner was unusually quiet that morning, the kind of silence where even the soft clink of a coffee cup felt too loud. Warm sunlight poured through the wide front windows, glinting off chrome table edges and glass salt shakers. In a corner booth sat Walter Branson, an 81-year-old Korean War veteran who arrived every single morning at exactly 8:15 a.m. He wore his favorite flannel shirt, faded at the elbows, and a pair of heavy boots that had endured more winters than most people in the room had lived through. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted his black coffee, but his eyes told a different story, calm, steady, and full of quiet dignity. These were the eyes of a man who had once faced fear on a battlefield and survived. That peace shattered in an instant. A younger man, broad-shouldered, sharp-tongued, and clearly angry, was arguing loudly with the waitress over his bill. His voice rose, his patience snapped, and then he noticed Walter watching quietly from his booth. Something about the old man's steady gaze pierced the thug's fragile pride. Before anyone could react, the man stormed over and struck Walter across the face. The sound cracked through the diner like a gunshot. Cups rattled. Conversations died. Time seemed to freeze. Walter didn't fall. He didn't fight back. He simply raised a trembling hand to his burning cheek, shocked not by the pain, but by the cruelty behind it. The diner fell into a heavy silence. The waitress, shaking, begged the men to leave. Other customers stared down at their plates, too afraid to step in. Walter remained seated, his weathered hand covering the fresh bruise, his eyes fixed on the coffee he could no longer taste. He wasn't afraid for himself, he had survived far worse. What hurt most was realizing how quickly respect had vanished in the world he helped protect. Minutes passed. Nearly an hour. Walter stayed in his booth, partly because his legs felt too heavy to stand, and partly because he had nowhere else to go. This diner was his refuge, a place where he was simply Mr. Branson, the kind old man who tipped generously even when his pension was thin. Now, even that sanctuary had been touched by violence. If you believe in kindness, respect for those who came before us, and the power of humanity, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Good Vibes Hub. Your support helps us spread real stories that remind the world what compassion truly looks like. But then, the bell above the diner door jingled. A sudden shift rolled through the room as a group of men walked in, men whose presence alone demanded attention. Leather vests stitched with bold insignias. Tattoos winding down muscular arms. Heavy boots striking the floor with confidence and purpose. They were members of the Hells Angels. At the center of the group walked a man taller than the rest, his gray-streaked beard giving him an unmistakable air of authority. His eyes swept across the diner until they stopped on Walter. In that instant, something changed in the old man's tired expression. Recognition flickered. The leader was Thomas Branson, Walter's son. The thug who had struck Walter was still inside, leaning against the counter, laughing smugly with a friend, completely unaware of what had just walked through the door. But Thomas saw the bruise on his father's face immediately. His jaw tightened. The bikers behind him noticed too. The diner held its breath. Everyone expected violence. But it never came. Thomas didn't rush forward. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he walked slowly to Walter's booth, pulled out the seat across from him, and sat down. He placed his rough, calloused hand gently over his father's trembling one. They sat there in silence. No words were needed. Walter, who had once cradled this man as a crying child, looked at the son he barely knew anymore. Fierce. Loyal. unyielding. Their lives had drifted apart years ago, Thomas choosing a path Walter struggled to understand. But in that moment, none of that mattered. Blood mattered. The thug finally noticed the bikers and laughed nervously. "What's this?" he sneered, standing up and puffing out his chest. "You need your gang to protect you, old man?" The room tensed again. Thomas didn't move. He looked at the man, calm and steady as stone, while the bikers stood silently behind him, unmoving, watchful. Their presence alone was a warning. Then Thomas spoke. Low. Firm. Absolute. "The man you laid your hand on is my father," he said. "He's an 81-year-old war veteran who gave more to this country than you ever will. And you thought it made you tough to hit him." The thug's grin vanished. The weight of the room pressed down on him, the stares of the customers, the silence of the bikers, and the quiet strength of the old man he had struck. Thomas never raised a fist. He didn't need to. Slowly, the thug backed away, muttering under his breath before rushing out the diner door. No one followed him. There was no need. His shame followed him farther than any man ever could. Walter finally exhaled. The tension drained from his body, and for the first time that morning, he allowed himself a small, weary smile. His son had defended him, not with violence, but with loyalty and respect. Something long broken between them began to heal. The waitress returned with fresh coffee, her hands still shaking, and quietly thanked Thomas and the bikers. Around the diner, murmurs replaced fear. Customers stepped forward to offer Walter words of respect, ashamed they hadn't acted sooner. Walter looked at his son and said softly, "I fought my battles long ago, Thomas. But nothing compares to the fight of keeping your family close." Thomas nodded, emotion flickering beneath his tough exterior. From that day on, the diner became more than a place for breakfast. It became a symbol of reconciliation. Walter and Thomas met there often, sometimes joined by Thomas's biker brothers, who treated the old veteran with a respect he never asked for, but deeply appreciated. And every time Walter walked through those doors, people remembered the morning when cruelty was silenced, not by fists, but by family. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Good Vibes Hub. Your support helps us share stories that remind the world that kindness, loyalty, and respect still matter. And before you go, tell us in the comments. Do you believe kindness has the power to heal broken families? Your words might give someone hope today. Walter Branson lived out his days with renewed peace, not just as the lonely veteran in the corner booth, but as a father who found his son again in the most unexpected place. And to everyone who witnessed it, that diner became a reminder that even in the face of cruelty, love will always be the greatest strength.